Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss the remaining characters of David Copperfield. In the last video we discussed about 13 characters. Now we have some more characters because you know that there are lots of characters in this novel. Is made it is cluttered with different types of characters and a complex whip and warp of different characters this novel is. So let's begin with the remaining characters. So here we discussed in the last video, we discussed up to 13 characters. Now we are going to begin with the 14th one, and that is James Steerforth. Yes. So James Steerforth was a senior student in Salem House whom David befriended, and when he went there with some of the money which was given to him by his mother, so all that money was taken by James Steerforth, and he said, I'll take care of you and I'll take care of this money as well. He was quite dominant there and quite influential. His mother also had some interference and influence in the school and was quite a handsome personality. He was there, and even after leaving the school, he grew up to be really quite a handsome person, but he was dissolute. Yes, he was dissolute because he was the man who corrupted or who spoiled Emily's life. Emily, who was engaged with Ham and was about to marry, so he actually took Emily with him. He eloped with Emily, took her with him to the place where he was, and then he spoiled her life and then abandoned her. So though handsome, but he was a man of dissolute character. Yes. Now the next we have, in the same school, we have Tommy Traddles. Yes, Tommy Traddles. So this Tommy Traddles was also a friend of David Copperfield. They met in Salem House, and from there this friendship continued, and until the end of the novel this friendship was there. They were ever friends. So Tommy Traddles was one of these students who was beaten daily or who was punished daily there in the Salem House, and he had to struggle a lot. After leaving the school, he married a character, a girl named Sophie Cruller. So that is the other character. We have Sophie Cruller. And their life had been full of ups and downs, lots of problems they had to face. He was financially very poor. He worked in different ways, different sorts of jobs, and finally Tommy Traddles became a judge and had a good life, successful life with his wife. Though Sophie Cruller, she was the daughter of a curator, and they had nine sisters. There were 9 sisters, and she was the eldest one. And she actually, the whole family was in a way dependent on her, and she took care of all the affairs of the family members, all the matters. They were so dependent. When that Tommy Traddles offered or proposed her for marriage, they got very furious and they didn't want her to go and marry Tommy Traddles. But the marriage happened and they lived happily. And even after that, though the family members, it took time to adjust to that marriage, but yes, it was all fine. And whenever there would be a house gathering, so there would be a happy atmosphere in the family. So Sophie Cruller the daughter of a curator in the novel. Next, we have Betsey Trotwood. So Betsey Trotwood is actually the auntie of David Copperfield's father, and she got angry and she didn't talk to David's father when she learned that he had married a girl that is Clara Copperfield. So she actually didn't come to them, didn't speak to them, didn't talk to them, and just was away, lived away from him and never returned. But the day when David was to be born, she came back, and then she saw Clara. She felt that that she was very young and sweet, and she liked David's mother. She was very happy to see her, and as she was pregnant as well, so she came in for the help and all. And when she was feeling quite, she was having pain, that labor pains, and she was to deliver the child. She asked Peggotty to go and call the doctor, and she looked after her, and she expected a girl child from her. Yes, she expected a girl child. She thought that it should be a girl, and then she should be named Betsey Trotwood after her name. So she wished that, but it was a boy child, and she got very furious again, and then she went away from the house saying that she won't return, and yes, after that she never returned to that house. She got that furious. Now, and moreover, she lived with a person named Mr. Dick, and later in David's life she became quite instrumental in everything that David achieved and did, because it was she to whom David went back, because she was the only living relative of his father. She looked after him, admitted him to a good school, and then he rose in his life. He grew up in his career and all. So Betsey Trotwood, an important character in this novel, who became who played a very vital role, very crucial role in shaping David's career. Yes, and now we have, as I mentioned, Dick. So next is Mr. Dick. So Mr. Dick was a distant relative of Betsey Trotwood, and he lived with her. He used to make very big kites, and he would always say that he was writing some memoirs, but he was never able to finish them, and he would say that yes, I would soon finish them. So he was that sort of person. And he was busy with all those things. He was sort of philosopher as well, and kind of like an unimportant person in the novel, though. And there is no, we can say there is no detail about him, much detail, or there is no much specific role for him to play in the novel. The only thing that is important, or that is mentioned in the novel, is he was a man who was a distant relative of Betsey Trotwood. He lived with her and made big kites, and after David's marriage, when he got some children, so they would go to auntie, and there he would make kites for the children. They would play there. So that is his role only, no other specific part for him to play in this novel. And now we have Mr. Micawber. We can say Mr. Wilkins Micawber. So Mr. Wilkins Micawber was David's landlord. So after Salem House, actually when David's mother died at the age of 10, Mr. Murdstone decided that now it's no use for him to continue with his studies. It would be better that he learn life, and so he was taken out of that school and he was sent to a company in which Mr. Murdstone himself was a partner. There his job was to clean the bottles, wine bottles. It was a wine company, so his job was to clean the wine bottles and label them, to paste new labels on them. And he worked there. It was a very dirty place. There were so many raids, and there he lived at Mr. Micawber's house. Yes, Wilkin Micawber's house. He hired or rented a room there. So Mr. Micawber is presented as a very good-natured person. He was a jolly sort of person, and would really quite a good-hearted, a large-hearted person, but was always in debt. His financial condition was not very good. He had married a woman named Emma Micawber, Mrs. Emma Micawber. She belonged to a rich family. Mrs. Emma Micawber belonged to a rich family, and her family members always quarreled, and they didn't support this marriage. They were not at all in favor of this marriage. They always chided her for this, but she was always faithful to her husband and always stood by him.